Most of the people involved in our next story have returned to help us reconstruct the nightmarish events that began on a bright California morning in 1982.
In a narrow canyon along the American River, Mike Astle and his cousin Dave Burgess were prospecting for gold, dreaming of striking it rich.
We got up early that morning. We're excited, anxious to get going. I started using the dredge first, sucking up the rocks and stuff with the big hose that he used to suck the gold out off the bottom with. And Dave was up on shore while I was down underneath the water. It was then when I heard this crunching sound. I was scrambling, trying to get out of the hole. And that's when I turned around and saw Dave underneath the water, pinned. I realized that he wasn't going to last very long underneath the rock without air. And I took the regulator out of my mouth and put it in his mouth, but the regulator didn't work. So I screamed for help.
Just down the river, 3 other prospectors were heading into town to fix a broken dredger when Hungarian immigrant Joe Sully heard Mike's cries.
I heard very, very quietly the yelling, and I yelled to my friends, "Hey, come on." We crossed the bridge, and I saw already something is wrong.
From the nearest campsite on the river, gold miner Bob Ellis rushed to help his neighbors.
The instinctive thing for me to do was to try to lift the rock. But it was very heavy. It wouldn't budge. It was a frightful situation. Dave, I thought he was dead.
All the time when we were running, I had the thought the worst happened. Gold miner is trapped under the water.
The 1.5-ton boulder had pinned Dave just 3 inches below the surface of the water. He could see the air just above him, but could not reach it.
I saw Dave's face. He lost consciousness already. Chris, my friend from Poland, mouth by mouth, he pushed the first shot of air into Dave's body.
Chris, he made no effort to move the rock. His priority was to get oxygen into Dave's lungs and thereby try to keep him alive.
A professor of physical education visiting from Poland, Chris had special training in underwater mouth-to-mouth respiration. Seeing they were making no progress, another miner ran to find someone with the CB radio, who then drove to the top of the canyon to get a call for help out. The distress call was relayed to rescue units in the field.
Medic 45, that's affirmative, responding, American River Canyon.
When Chris tired, Joe took over the cold and exhausting work of trying to breathe life into Dave. They alternated, unwilling to give up. One of the men remembered he had a large crowbar at his campsite and ran to get it. The minutes were passing, and none of the men knew how much longer they could keep going.
Running the dredge seemed to help the situation. We removed some gravel. By the time the pry bar did arrive, we were able to position it to where we could get a leverage without causing injury.
In one moment I felt the body is moving, but he looked dead.
Pull up, hurry! Get him out of there!
After more than 10 minutes trapped underwater, Dave's limp body was pried out from under the boulder.
When we finally pulled him up on shore, that's when the Polish guy gave him CPR.
He had to be brought back to life. Chris knew how. Chris instructed me very shortly. You pump him up, and I'm gonna to do the heart massage. After the second push, he started to breathe, and that was the moment when Chris, in Polish, yelled, "Żyje, żyje," which means he's in life. Everybody's hand fell down, and we felt real good.
The nearest ambulance had been miles away by rough dirt roads at the time the call for help came in. Dave was coughing up blood from ruptured vessels in his lungs, but breathing shallowly on his own as senior medic Joe Cross reached him.
When we arrived at the scene, Mr. Burgess was singing praises towards his rescuers. He was exhilarated to be alive, and he was praying quite a bit. The rescuers were timely. They appeared to have delivered the appropriate rescue measures, and I think that without those measures, Mr. Burgess would not be alive today.
I can remember waking up on the bank, and I knew that I was dead. And next thing I remember is thinking, wow, rivers in heaven. That was my first thought, because I heard the water, and it was like I was dreaming almost.
It was a very frightening feeling to see the possibility of death and how fast it can happen.
There was kind of a unison there, the way the people responded in this crisis, and I think that was one of the key factors in the success of the rescue. There was no one hero that day.
Dave is no longer prospecting. He and his wife Lori live near Sacramento with the two sons he would never have seen without the aid of a half a dozen strangers on the banks of the American River.
The men that helped my husband have a caring heart, because not everybody would have come to the call for help. Some people would have just said, I don't want to get involved. And I really admire them for that strength and courage to go and help to save my husband's life.
It's just amazing that the right people were there at the right time. I consider my rescue a miracle.
Next.
Yeah, Jeb, I think we got a problem with the airplane here. I'm not getting the light on the right landing gear.